Hello and welcome back to another episode of Leaving Scientology by Louis Repetto. I was having some technical difficulties and some mental technical difficulties in the last few days. I had a good streak going of doing live videos, but now I'm back to do more live videos daily, hopefully. I had to set up my camera and stuff downstairs just so it was out of the way and it was um, of, in the living room. I'm a little bit I get uh, I get a little bit involved with the organization of things in order for me to like get them done. If I if something's like bothering me about how something's organized, it usually just doesn't get done. And I think that's from just just being in the Sea Org. But this episode on leaving Scientology is by Louis Repetto is about this quote, not per L or H, which is not per L. Ron Hubbard. And not per L or H is words that I used over and over when I was in the Sea organization, and I used to ensure the quality of the technology of standard tech was being applied, but everyone was doing that, supposedly wanting to get the tech applied 100%. But I would always say, well, that's not per LRH. You'd always hear that too. That's not per LRH. That's not per LRH. That's not per LRH. Like nonstop kind of thing, not per LRH. Well, I do have more to say about this not per LRH. Someone said, I said in a comment on one of Aaron's videos during the live, I said Scientology cannot exist if Scientology cannot exist if you change one thing about it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Scientology then, because Scientology is all attributed to Source. Source is L. Ron Hubbard, and he said that he is Source and that he is the founder of Scientology itself. And it's a system, and it in the system of Scientology, everything does make sense. It does all fit together correctly. And that doesn't mean that it does work in a real life situations. It just means that, for me, it means that Scientology is just working within itself. It works. It works if you believe that you're doing that kind of thing, and you think that you're achieving these awareness levels of awareness by L. Ron Hubbard that he's described. But what's really happening to the person is like what I see is L. Ron Hubbard is saying, you have cognitions when you have a realization about life, when you talk about these certain questions. And these questions, he's saying, the ones I've written in this order, will lead to these cognitions, and the cognitions are all like stacked on each other. You've got to have multiple different cognitions to have a big cognition and stuff. And the cognitions that are big are usually more simple, and they apply to more vast amounts of time to your life. And L. Ron Hubbard says that he is Source. He's the one that found and researched, and he was like the one that came to Earth to find, to research and discover a way to free himself from the physical universe. And he did that through lifetimes trying to do this research. This is my understanding. He did that through lifetimes of his research. And he would say that he's the source of Scientology. So, like, no one else can add or subtract to it. You cannot subtract to Scientology and then it's something else. It's by somebody else. That's not L. Ron Hubbard if you're subtracting stuff. I would say that's not per LRH. You know, people try to do stuff in Scientology when I was there in the Sea Organization when they would try to not do things that were per LRH. They would just, when I was the staff section officer, I would uh, repeatedly see executives ordering the staff members to do this or that course when the staff members were already um, mucked up and bugged and had horrible time studying with their courses that they were already in the middle of. And L. Ron Hubbard, LRH said in a lecture that I listened to, several lectures I would say that I listened to, that the talk on basic qual, that you have to go back to the first course that the person has misunderstood words in. You have to go to that and clear up the misunderstood words there. Then you have to go to their next course and finish that course, and on and so on. You can't be just jumping around like all of these executives in the Sea Organization think they know what's best, especially David Miscavige. He thinks he knows what's best for the Sea Org members, even though, so he's like bypassing me, the staff section officer. And that's, I used to lead on RTC and CMO and messengers. I used to give them incorrect reports about the staff members because I wanted them to do what LRH said to do. And LRH says to do, you have to go back and find these earlier courses and clear them up. But the RTC people and the CMO, they all wanted the staff members to do the basics, the books and lectures, 11 basic books. Each one's 200 pages in chronological order, too. They wanted the Sea Org members to do this. And it was the books and lectures. After each book, you listen to like 10 lectures regarding that book that by L. Ron Hubbard. And he was just the books, the basic books and lectures. So 220 lectures or something like that. And then all of these books. When my Sea Org staff members, they couldn't even get through one page of Dianetics. They would fall asleep or they didn't understand it. They didn't even understand. They were having so much trouble with just understanding. Um, I just it's and then I used to admire them though, how strong they were and like amazing to be able to produce on post and still not really understand what their post is about according to the references, because they haven't even made it. When you get off the EPF and the Sea Org, the States Project Force, that's the beginning training for the first few months. When you get off that, you have to do your mini hat. It's a little tiny course, takes like 2 weeks, and then you have to do your full hat. And that one takes like 4 weeks part-time. Most staff members, they never finished it. They never finished their full hats. They get to their full hat. As soon as you're fully hatted, the carrot that they are given, the Sea Org members, is that they can go up the bridge now. As soon as you're fully hatted, you can go up the bridge. And that is what L. Ron Hubbard said. He said that in a reference on co-auditing and staff members, how you have to go up, in order to go up the bridge for staff, they just have to be fully hatted. So I was on a campaign. I was going hardcore on, just getting people through these earlier courses and then fully hatted. But I could care less about the fully hatted part. As long as they were mini hatted, I wanted to get their incomplete actions completed in the Sea Org. A lot of them there were 11 staff members, Sea Org members, that had all had their Method 1 incomplete when they joined the Sea Org. Some of them for like 5 or 10 years. They were in the middle of an auditing action where you're supposed to go back and clear up all of your misunderstood words in your education. And you do it on an e-meter, and it's when you get the end phenomena of that one, it's a rehabilitated education. So if they voice something like that, and there's some other meter characteristics for the method one, well, these people, they just never did their method one. So I did all 11 method ones, and each one I did an intensive or 2 intensives on them. And then Eunice Spallino was one of them. Pretty sure I had to do her method one. She was in the middle of an action. She needed to go on an LOA, and so this is like in 2008 or 9. I'm the staff section officer. Eunice Spallino, she's the mom of the cadet, the bad cadet, Catherine Spallino. And she was also the mom of Jason Spallino and Philip Spallino and Mr. Spallino, but not her husband. Mr. Spallino, that's how I remember it, because she was a messenger. So anyways, Eunice needed to go on a leave of absence, and she really needed to go. She just needed to go for like 5 days or something, or like 3 days. And she was just like in such, she just really needed to go. She did not seem like she had a situation or anything. It just seemed like it was an intense desire for her to go. So I wanted to help her. So I looked at her folder, and she's like in the middle of a green form 40 XRF, and she's in the middle of a PTS rundown. And then she also needs to flatten her or fix her method one. And I'm like she's been in the Sea Org for 25, 30 years, and no one ever took care of her. She never went to the rehabilitation project force. She was just a good Sea Org member. She had kids, and they were all Sea Org members at one point. And then she always did her job. I knew her. We were just like friendly with each other. And I think we even were table mates for like a year. So that was cool. She used to, Eunice Bellino. She worked in the basement. She was like a letter writer. I'd like to write letters to people when I was in Scientology. And so that's when I go down there and say, hey, hi to Eunice. So Eunice is down there, and then I looked at her folder. No one's taking care of her case. She's just like uh, in the middle of all these actions. So I'm a fucking badass. I've gone with class 6. I can do anything. So I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna fix this. This is not right. And do. First, I did the green form 40, and she had a read on int. And so we fixed that real quick. And then she had to wait. No, she did not have to wait a week, because there's an end phenomenon on the interiorization rundown where if you get a floating tone arm, you can end the rundown. And I got a floating tone arm on her. It was an end of endless int repair rundown that I was doing on her. So I was doing the green form 40 on her, and then it read on int. And so I went to the int correction list. I did an int correction list on her, because she had both the end of endless int repair rundown and the interiorization rundown, I believe. So I did the ICL int correction list on her. It reads on a couple of the buttons, and then I ran the flows on those, and she had a floating TA. I ended the session, and I took her to the examiner, and then she did not have to attest to that action, I don't think. She had to we just went on to the next thing. So it was just an ink correction list that I was doing. And then So, in that, when I had to do an incorrection list on Eunice, I found out that really she didn't understand Thetan, the definition of Thetan. This makes me sad. So she didn't understand the definition of Thetan, really, and she had done all the basics and stuff. I remember books and lectures, and she just didn't understand how it could be in the how the Thetan can go exterior. She didn't understand it. So I took out the pilot dictionary. This is one good thing. This is one thing I was good at. I was like seeing what people didn't understand about Scientology and then just showing them the reference on that on their misunderstanding. So I showed her, I pulled out the pilot dictionary, and there's a line in there where it says that the Thetan can be located in space and time in the MS universe. And so she read that and she understood it. I showed her some picture book pictures, and then we cleared that to a floating needle. And then I audited her on the incorrection list again. I went back to that and I audited her on that subject of interiorization. After she understood what exteriorization meant, and then I I ran the process. She got a floating TA. I come back into the session to the next step on our program, and so it's the Green Form 40 XRF. I handle a couple more reads on there. One of them is regarding her study. She has some kind of problem. She's good at studying and stuff, I believe. She likes to read and everything, but there was something that was like reading for her on that. And so we fixed that. Then I audited her on her PTS rundown. So what ended up happening is I also had to verify correct all of her lists. So I went through all of her folders, and she has like so many, like 40 or 50. I don't remember how many. A lot. I feel like a lot of staff CWARG members have a lot of folders. A folder is fairly thick. It's like 4 inches thick. I'd say 3.5 if you have enough manila folders, and 3.5 inches thick, and the legal paper, and it's very concise, and there's records inside of it. There's records inside of it and everything. And I went through all of her folders, so you have to read every single piece of paper. So like read what I did was I had to go through all of her folders. I did this for all the CREG members there. I went through every single piece of paper in their folders, and I had to do a summary of all of the information. So I did all of that, and that way I was able to verify and correct her lists. One of the items that came up was Catherine, her daughter, and I asked her, "Is this a correct PTS item?" And she said no, it was not. And I was like, "Okay, well, let's do a correction list on this." So I pulled out a correction list and did an L4 BRB on her. And then we fixed up what the real item was. And then it was not Catherine. Then we went back. I did all that with all these different items that she had added in her folders. And then I went back and we fixed her PTS rundown. I went back there. I fixed all of her PTS rundown stuff, and I did all these correction lists. I went through some engram chains that she never really flattened before, and I went through and flattened all of those, and it's like, don't these staff members, they've been here for so long and stuff, don't they never get taken care of? Like, she's had these unflat engram chains for forever, and when I did the folder summary where I read every single paper, I found these chains, and I did that to all the Sea Org members, and they all have tons of chains. Each person who has ever had New Era has had Dianetics auditing, a Sea Org member. All of them have unflat chains. Like, none of them go to a basic. And I was just like appalled, like how many there were. And so the staff are just not being taken care of. And so I was taking care of Eunice, getting her through her PTS rundown, and I got her through the Green Form 40 XRF. Oh, then I did her leaving staff, not leaving staff, but her LOA, leave of absence. She needed a confessional for that, so I did that on her, and she ended up having to do a lower condition before she could leave, just to finish her leaving her confessional. And then she went on. Okay, she knew that she couldn't leave. That if she left out of Scientology to see her family or whatever, and she did not come back, if she did not come back, I would get in trouble. Louis Repetto would get in trouble, and she knew that. And she knew that I was helping the staff members because I was helping her. She saw me helping and the other Sea Org members, and so she was like, I don't want to harm. Yes, I don't want to harm. She knew that she didn't want to like harm me, because what would happen is if she didn't come back, I would probably get put on the rehabilitation project force. I would be brainwashed to shit because somehow Louis Repetto has done something to cause in her auditing Eunice to leave. They're always afraid that they're always mad or angry that an auditor must have done something wrong to create these bad effects inside of people. When a Scientologist would leave Scientology, the auditors, or when a Sea Org member blew, for example, ran away, the Sea Org member that was doing the auditing on that person then gets investigated, and they are put under the friendly interrogation. So how I like to call it, friendly interrogation, confessional auditing, which is a brutal, I believe, brainwashing technique developed by L. Ron Hubbard that he's selling to people as superhero powers. Now, confessional. I do the confessional on her. She comes back after leaving, and then comes back. And then you want to come up here? I've got a cat on my lap. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay. Anyways, back to the story. Catherine Eunice left, and she came back. Then I was I was happy, and I took her in session that same weekend and did her method 1 and finished that. And then she could finally go on to whatever next steps she could get. I believe it might have been the purification rundown was next. I don't remember if I case supervised her through that or not. But I did case supervise a lot of staff members through their purification rundowns. So yeah, I not per LRH. So it's just not per LRH for David Miscavige or anyone in Religious Technology Center to come to my org and tell me what the staff members need to be doing on their course or in their auditing. That is called executive case supervising and is out tech. It's not per L. Ron Hubbard. It's not per LRH. And I used to say no to these people. Or if I couldn't say no because they were like going to do something to attack me, like sign me lower conditions or something. Hold on. Let me just. There we go. So yeah, the if they were to like, I would tell them, I would first I try to manipulate the technical individual program by putting these courses that they were in the middle of first. And then I would then put the basic books and lectures. And I'd say, this is per the reference XYZ. Talk on a basic qual. Duh. You guys listen to it. Golden Age of Tech. 1996. Ring a bell? Anyways, I guess I'll fix this camera because you can't really see the cat. No. I just thought that was kind of cool. So Golden Age of Tech, not per LRH. I lectured her on method 1 word clearing. I finished that. So yeah, it's just not per LRH. Sea Org members being told the staff section and Michael Danilovich, Micho Danilovich, he was my junior. He was the deputy staff section officer. And he had a I had known him for only a little bit of time. He was the medical liaison officer while at Ash O'Day. Okay. He was the medical liaison officer at Ash O'Day. And then when I became the staff section officer, I was previously a supervisor, like supervising all of these public. And I was supervisor supervising public. I got really tech trained. And then I was like, I want to be a staff section officer so I can audit the staff members and fix their auditing so that they can go up the bridge, because I wanted to go up the bridge, and I wanted them to go up the bridge. So I got onto the staff section officer post, and then Michael Danilovich. Micho was put on as the deputy staff section officer, and he was not allowed to be the staff section officer because of reasons that sent him to the rehabilitation project force at a way earlier date. He had done the rehabilitation project force for like 5 years. And after he was in INT, wherever the fuck that was, I'd never been there, I never cared where it was. I just was happy being on PAC in North Hollywood. So Micho gets busted out of INT, sent to the rehabilitation project force for 5 years, comes out, he's working for me now as the deputy SSO. So he was willing to do it. He was willing to do whatever they wanted, put them on the basic books and lectures. He was okay with that. He just had to do what, Dave Miscavige and the messengers and RTCs. I never used to think of David Miscavige as David Miscavige. I always thought of him as COB. So that's good. I'm saying David Miscavige now. So David Miscavige, he left. I was in the Syrup. Where am I at? I audited Eunice. Came back. Not per LRH. SSO, DSSO, Micho. Okay, back to Micho. Micho, I read all of his folders. He has redacted stuff in there as well. Like where they, in Scientology, when they redact stuff, they don't just black it out. They actually cut it out. And he had a bunch of redacted stuff in there. But you could still kind of tell. I could tell because I was familiar with how the folders lingo go. So I could kind of see, I could read between the lines. I could read without the lines. Okay. His folder he had something to do with Dave Miscavige. Something to do there. Whoa. I feel like claw there, cat. He had a rock slam on Dave Miscavige. And he was put on an ethics and e-meter and some kind of ethics interview. He had a rock slam in the subject of Dave Miscavige, like in the same session. Now, that was like 8 years earlier, 5 years earlier that this happened. And I'm saying now is 2008. This is what I'm talking about now. I'm the staff section officer. He's the deputy staff section officer. He is not allowed to be the staff section officer. Now, I'm not bagging on Micho because later it gets even crazier what happens to him. This guy's a born-in Sea Org member, Scientologist. His dad is the captain of AOSH UK. And so Micho is just growing up in the Sea Org, and he was a messenger, and he was an RGC trainee, and he was all of these things, an int. I don't know what happened, but he had a rock slam on the subject of Dave Miscavige. He had to go to the Rehabilitation Project Force for 5 years. And that is nonstop, not allowed to talk to anyone except for your group, which is about 100 people or less. And you're not allowed to talk to other people. You're not allowed to socialize within your group either. But you go to this Rehabilitation Project Force. You get technically trained, sort of, half kind of, and then you get technically trained, then you have to audit somebody else, and they have to audit you. And not only he had a rock slam, so he didn't just get auditing. He didn't just get false purpose rundown, which is what everybody gets on our rehabilitation project force. You get many questions with use of false purpose rundown. That's a confessional procedure that brainwashes you to think your current overts are caused by your own evil intentions. So it brainwashes you to believe that you really do have evil intentions. Now, this false purpose rundown is done on these people, on Micho, for, oh my God, like so freaking long, and like every day, and his case was not even set up for false purpose rundown. And that's just even more dangerous with staff members, Sea Org members especially. He didn't have a full purif, his drugs weren't handled, and he hadn't done really much objectives. So he was getting all this false purpose rundown. And it's just sick. Sick. It is not per LRH. It's just disgusting how fucking awful, just Scientologically, the Sea Org members get treated. Just awful. Jennifer, and I'll get to Jennifer, but Micho was just put on there and just audited and audited. Then, after the false purpose rundown, in order to handle his rock slam, he had to get expanded Dianetics, which is really specialty auditing. It has to do with running painful incidents with evil intentions in them. So Not only are you associating now that your bad actions are from these evil intentions, but you're associating these evil intentions with these engrams, which are painful incidents that you remember in the past. And whether you make them up or not, is if you believe in them, this stuff, I feel like it's going to happen to you. Now, he is getting this expanded Dianetics auditing. I know all this because I did a folder summary on his folders. Uh, and I was class 6, so I could do expanded Dianetics auditing folder error summary. You have to be the auditor or whatever, I think. I don't know if you have to be that for the folder error summary, but I know, anyways, I was doing it on his. He's got, like, 3 unflat chains. He's got, he's in the middle of a a couple of items that didn't get run on his PTS rundown, which he also had. So the PTS rundown is a rundown, Scientology brainwashing rundown that makes you believe that your problems stem from um, a suppressive person. I know it's hard to believe. Scientology is always saying, "Oh, you're the cause. You're the cause. You're the cause." Well, that's true. This is a little bit of a twist on that. He's saying that you can audit the person at cause, or you can audit them at effect. And when you're auditing them at effect, you have to put them at cause. Fucking L. Ron Hubbard. He's like totally smoking dope. Like, you have to put them at effect. Only a certain program can have effect. Like PTS auditing. That's all at effect. Because in effect, you're the one that's sort of like the victim. Effect is the victim. And at effect, it's suppressive persons that are causing you to be roller coastering or having like a bad life, up and down, good and bad, and good and bad. And you get this PTS rundown, and you just assign all of these specific things that have to do with the subject of potential trouble source to the suppressive person, and you just believe in that. You're just like, am I just believing that they're just creating, these other people are creating all kinds of havoc in your own mind. That's what suppressive persons do. That's what Scientologists believe. That a suppressive person, has the ability to like do bad things in your mind and stuff. That's what Scientologists believe. So on the PTS rundown, it's like brainwash the shit out of you to believe that um, the reason why you're not able to own things, or you have like mental issues with the subject of owning something or reaching it, or yeah, having it, enforced having, and um, withholding things, all that is like reaching and withdrawing. That's the part. He's saying this potential trouble source, we're going to audit this person, and we're going to make them think and recall times of this exact question. And the question has to do with whether or not the suppressive person has enforced something on them, on the PTS person. Can you recall the time when the suppressive person enforced a condition on you? And I'll say that's a question. Then the person thinks, oh, and they think about them getting the enforcement. And then as part of that, the reaching, so okay, now as part of that, they do the other flows. It gets more complicated as far as reaching and withdrawing and stuff. Oh, I got a comment here. Sweet. Kitty Dungar. That rehabilitation sounds like torture. Yeah. Thank you. It is torture. It is torture. I wanted to go on there and torture myself at one point. I wanted to go on the rehabilitation project force. That's how freaking brainwashed I was. Me and Aaron Smith-Levin, we had a big old argument, and I was like, "Fuck you! Send me to the rehabilitation project force then." And I was in the hallway, and we were yelling at each other, screaming at each other, and this was back in the C organization. He's a technical secretary. I'm a supervisor, and we're like, yelling about, oh, I don't remember what the hell it was. Quotas not being met. Josh, thank you. Uh, Buddy, it'll take a lot more than $50 a month for me to do that kind of CRAP. Yeah, me too. I really believed that I was gonna go up the bridge and for free, and I had done a lot of courses there. Probably up to the tune of about $400,000 in training courses alone, I would say. And then in the auditing that I received, I probably got at least $90,000. So that's kind of where I was when I was in the Sea Org. That's how I justified it to myself. I never thought, oh, I need to get my pay. I always thought about how much money I was making based on how many courses I was doing. Boom. It is so wonderful that you are free now. Well, thank you. So, not per LRH, can Scientology be the way it is if it is altered? Can Scientology still exist as Scientology if it is altered in any way? No, can't be Scientology. It's not per LRH. It's just not per L. Ron Hubbard. He is source. He is the only one that can change things. And David Miscavige, I get that everyone says David Miscavige is changing the tag. I've heard that. I heard that in the C organization. That's not a new propaganda campaign. That's been going on a long time ago, for years. That same thing. Dave Miscavige, like, oh my God, get something new. Is what I used to think in the Sea Org. Like these public would come in for some kind of ethics handling with me, and they would be like, "Oh, Dave Miscavige, he's changing the definition of an F floating needle and stuff." And this and that, and I would say, just look up the definition of LRH technical research and compilations in the pilot dictionary. It says right there that these people are allowed to compile things. So maybe the LRH technical research and compilations could compile a way to disconnect from things, somehow just to not disconnect from things. My bad. Maybe LRH technical research and compilations can be like, this is Scientology without disconnection. And there's no theta mess theory either, because disconnection is based on that. That's what disconnection is based on. And without that, nothing. I mean, you have to have the theta mess theory in Scientology. It's the component part of all of this fake ass science shit, or science fiction shit. And the theta mess theory, which is that theta enters into mess, gets confused or baffled or whatever, has some kind of confusion, and then leaves that mess and comes out with some kind of rules or formulas for conquering the mess again. So that's the theta mess theory. It's there's a whole book about it. It's called Science of Survival, and there's a lot of Scientology and Science of Survival. I don't believe that L. Ron Hubbard really came up with Scientology later, as what is said. I really believe that it came up. I really believe he made up Scientology in Excalibur, which is the first book that he wrote, which is not a real book. It was an article that was in a magazine. And I believe that one, which no one has ever seen, it's confidential, has Scientology in it. Plus, there's some Scientology stuff in like 1949 as well. But really, he does like start entering in the subject of Scientology in the, like mid 50s, more specifically, but not per LRH. I gotta keep saying that, not per LRH, so I can stay on track. Not per LRH, not per LRH. Oh yeah, so can LRH technical research and compilations make a new Scientology? Well then, yeah, sure, if they can make it without disconnection has to do with data messaging theory. Oh yeah. So disconnection is done to get the person back. Let's say I'm the Sea Org member, and let's say my mom, I could disconnect from her in order for her to realize that she can come back, because he says they will come back. When you label them, when you say no to them, to the suppressive persons, they'll still come back, and not in a bad way come back, like they're going to keep coming back after you. No, he means they'll come back and be like, let's let bygones be bygones. I hear Aaron quote that recently. He said, let's let bygones be. We were going to let bygones be bygones, and no, you guys had to fuck us up. That's true. Yeah, we were totally gonna let bygones be bygones, and then no, I had to keep going. So, LRH said the thing about the disconnection, right? So, suppressed person rundown. In the theory of the suppressed person rundown, is you, by auditing out the problems that you have caused between you and the other suppressive person, if you can run out these problems that have caused that suppressive person to come at you and be suppressive, they will magically be fine again and want to come back. It's covered in the suppressed person rundown. If you can handle, it's total bullshit, obviously, but if you could believe in that, I feel like you want to believe in that. I wanted to believe in that. Other people wanted to believe in that. You could just get auditing yourself, and that would handle your whatever the suppressive persons are that you disconnected from. I really believe that's probably why, not thinking about it, it's probably why my father wanted to go up the bridge so badly. I got declared suppressive person when he was on OT6. No, he was pretty gung-ho before I got declared suppressive person. I don't know. Then I went up the bridge, OT levels, you remember my dad got bounced out of what I was talking about. Disconnection. Disconnection is simply the data mesh universe. It's the data leaving the mesh universe. That's it. So that's disconnection. Boom. L. Ron Hubbard says that. That's part of the Scientology is disconnection. People could say that is a weird interpretation of disconnection and of what L. Ron Hubbard really meant. But I am right. And because it doesn't matter what he meant, it is just all brainwashing you to control you, to cut communications with your mind, your own ideas, people around you. It's like Scientology always promotes how you can be in better communication with other people. That means you're there and communicating. And he's always saying you should be there and communicate. But really, I feel like the opposite is happening. He's saying don't communicate with your own mind about other ideas than Scientology. Don't communicate with other people about your interpretations of what Scientology is. He's so many don'ts in Scientology, and they're disguised as like um keeping the technology pure. They're disguised as that. Scientologists should be allowed to communicate their own interpretation of Scientology. And that's just in Scientology, you're not allowed to do that. Whether you're in the Sea Org or a Scientologist, if you're ever talking to a Scientologist, just tell them, don't try to get them at first, don't try to get them to talk to you about Scientology. Just get them, because what's going to happen is you're going to not understand it. You're not going to understand what they're saying. Then they're going to say, you, they're going to say, they're going to want to interpret it for you. And as soon as they do, they feel they've done something bad. And then they've got to confess in their sessions in the Church of Scientology. And that does come up a lot. Not a lot, but it does come up about Scientologists giving verbal technical information and to people, like an explanation of what Scientology is to people, and then getting in trouble for it. So they get in big trouble for that. Verbal tech is like really a massive, massive bad thing in Scientology. Is if you do that as a Sea Org member, you're going to the Rehabilitation Project Force Torture Camp 101 by Scientology. So if you go to there, you're going to go to the RPF if you give out verbal tech, for sure. So if you're talking to a Scientologist, they can go to a certain degree. They can explain what Scientology is, maybe like what it's about and some things that they have had success with. But they can't actually take a piece of paper with a paragraph and take a paragraph and then explain to you what this means to them. That is not allowed. So I think that if you can get them to just talk about, another thing is don't go, I told you, or, don't make guesses as to what Scientology is, and don't make analogies, because they're going to think, you don't get it. Because in Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard talks about how this is not similar to anything else. And other people have come to him and said, this is similar to psychology or this or that or other practice. And L. Ron Hubbard has already talked about this in Scientology and said that this is going to happen, that people are going to think it's similar to this other thing. But that's not really true, he says, and he explains why. So if you're coming at a Scientologist and they're like, if they're explaining what Scientology is, don't go, like psychoanalysis, or don't go, like yoga. Like when I do TR0 is like yoga, right? The Scientologists will go, no. And then they'll agree and then they'll just move on. They won't really like explain it. They can't explain Scientology to people. They think they can because there's a book called What is Scientology? And there's a drill on this where all Scientologists do this drill. And there's like 100 questions in it. And it's all the things that Scientology wants you to answer for each question. So there's a little paragraph of information about each question. And you have to do this drill for about 5 hours. I did it for 5 hours. Some people took like 4 days on it, but you have to be able to answer the questions in out of order and stuff, and not be able to look down at the answer. Like, is a Scientology a religion or what is Scientology? So then the public, these Scientologists, then know what to say. It just comes off their tongue. It's that part where I feel like if you can get a Scientologist, I want to figure this out. If you can get a Scientologist to give verbal tech and give, which is their own interpretation of a specific thing, but not dress it up like that. I think that would break the cycle a little bit of not being able to examine your own, not be able to examine Scientology. In Scientology, you're only being allowed to examine Scientology from L. Ron Hubbard's perspective. So you can't give your own interpretation of what this all means. You see. Hello, Crystal Clarity. Welcome to the live show. What is verbal tech? Well, verbal tech, I've been sort of rambling on about this, but it is basically explaining to people your interpretations, your own explanation, your own addition to what Scientology is. So any kind of explanation for Scientology, you're not allowed to do that. That's verbal technology. So simply, it's verbal. It's saying the technology verbally. That is what you're not allowed to do. You can only read it to somebody else verbally. It has to be word for word. And there's like all kinds of stuff on the walls about verbal tech, like quotes. Anyone giving verbal tech will be fucking comeved into non-existence, you piece of shit. That's what the verbal tech givers get. This applies to Scientologists and to Sea Org members. So verbal tech is for everyone. This is like, you better not fucking do this. And I think because L. Ron Hubbard is saying, don't do something, I think I want to do it. I think I want to fucking do it, L. Ron Hubbard. I hope that answered that. We can talk about it more, though. Maybe I didn't answer it. Okay. Back to the rehabilitation project force. Yes, sounds like torture. Micho Danilovich, he was my junior, and he got through the rehabilitation project force. Now, he had the rock slams. That was why he was on the RPF. He got off the RPF, and then he came into my org, Ash O'Day, and light blue shirts. And he came to my org, and he was the deputy staff section officer. Then when I left the Sea Org, he became the staff section officer because get this shit. His rock slam wasn't even real. He went to the rehabilitation project force for 5 fucking years and had to be like put a humiliation and shame for that whole time. He got divorced from his wife. He got fucking destroyed by David Miscavige, and this entire time, his rock slam wasn't even real. You're supposed to do a checklist at the time of a rock slam. It's like this. It's like slashing like this. That's on the meter. That indicates you have a hidden evil intention on the subject being talked about. His was on David Miscavige. It could also be anything within that session can be part of the rock slam. The hidden evil intention could be anything in that session. So David Miscavige may have been the subject of the interview or something, the ethics interview that he got. And then he got the rock slam. And then he was sent to the rehabilitation project force. But turns out when I left the Sea Org, he was becoming the staff section officer because our senior technical training super guru, Margie Esterman, super fantastic abuser, she determined that his rock slam wasn't even real. This whole time, Micho, you know, and he since later Asho Day, he's been successful and he got married newly to a new person, and then he had some trouble doing some illegal things. And then he became the staff section officer because it's this rock slam. But you can't be the staff section officer. It's the one that you takes care of the staff members if you have a rock slam. It's not allowed. And so he got the rock slam expunged from his case, I guess, because he did enough punishment. It doesn't really work like that. You're supposed to actually handle the rock slam and the reasons behind it, the evil intention. And that is the reason why I went to the rehabilitation project force, was to handle this rock slam that he had, which I told you about earlier in a long, lengthy, annoying rant about technical information. So he went and did the RPF, but he later, it didn't even matter. I can't believe that. I was just so mad about that. Like, he went that whole time. He could be still in RTC. I mean, he probably would have been busted for something else, given that David Miscavige clearly had it out for him. I wonder what he had on David Miscavige. I don't know, but it was all redacted, the stuff that I saw. Yeah, the rehabilitation project, it sounds awful. It was awful. Um, People were, like, just going on there, and you can't even talk to them. They wear, black jeans, black shirt, and they just concentrate full time on auditing another person and then getting auditing on your evil intentions. And once you are fully handle all of your evil intentions, then you can graduate this rehabilitation program back into the wonderful C organization, which is another torture chamber um, of the staff never going up the bridge and the staff never um, getting through courses or the basics or anything because they just weren't being taken care of. That's what the beginning of this was about. The staff members weren't being taken care of. They were RTC was trying to get them to do the basic books and lectures. And I was like, no, I'm having the staff members get fully headed and go up the bridge, motherfuckers. Because that is what LRH said, not Dave Miscavige. That's how I used to be when I was in the Sea Org. So they probably didn't like that. I know they didn't like that. And I got into a lot of trouble oftentimes, meaning I'd get yelled at in the office. I get assigned lower conditions. Um, and if you get assigned lower conditions, the penalties with that are already worse than just not being able to leave the base. That's just the general penalty. You're not allowed to leave the base and you're not allowed to think about anything except for what's on this base. So then, with lower conditions, you'll have shorter meal breaks. You can't go on to org awards, which is pizza and a movie at the end of the week if your org is upstat. And I liked org award. I liked eating pizza. I rarely got to eat pizza. I don't remember what kind I got, but you know, I wanted to eat pizza for like a once in 6 weeks. Sometimes people would steal pizza for me. And so, you know, that was important to me, going and watching a movie and then eating the pizza and sometimes ice cream. And, if they just gave me pizza every day and ice cream, maybe I'd still be there. Or like what if they just like fed me correctly? Fed anyone correctly? That's what I would say. Are you wearing my jacket? LOL. Yes, I'm wearing your jacket. I don't know whose jacket this was, actually. I this I put this all the camera set up downstairs in the basement, and it was cold, and I was like, "Dang, I didn't even think this through." So I went upstairs, tried to find my own jacket. I found this fluffy jacket. I was like, "Damn, this is awesome. I want this." So I'm wearing it. Crystal clarity. The rules surrounding verbal tech were probably meant to keep you in line and stop you from being a free thinker. Yes, I agree. Yes, indeed. Rules on verbal tech. It's like, um, you know how when in Scientology, if you speak out publicly against Scientology, that's called a high crime? Well, verbal tech is a high crime. That is the equivalent of speaking out against Scientology. Verbal tech. Like, wow. I think it might be a crime, and then if you do it for like 5 or 6 times, it's a high crime. But if you do it on some specific information, like if you did it on what's on the OT levels, that's fucking high crime. Oh shit, you're in a world of, you're gonna get confessionals for like 60 hours, and you're gonna pay for it too, Scientologist. That's your punishment. Pay us money. You have to pay, it's like the punishment is you have to pay us money if you give verbal tech. So people don't want to pay money. They're just like, I just won't give the verbal tech. Scientologists, at least. Because think about it. If you pay the money, if you give the verbal tech, and then you have to do more auditing because of the verbal tech, and you pay for that, you have to pay for that. And every hour is $500. When I became a class 6, some of the auditing that I was doing was worth $700 an hour. Damn! That shit does not translate out to the real world, though. No, only in Fairyland. Only in Scientology Fairyland, for sure. All right. So, Josh, smoke weed every day, face turquoise covering eyes. Thank you, Josh. Face turquoise covering eyes. Okay. I hear you. That's cool. Thank you for all the comments. What else should we talk about here? I think the original subject is not per LRH. These are just words I hear in my head. And somebody says, "Oh, that's not per LRH." I'm like, "Yeah, it is. Go fuck yourself. I know it's per LRH." Or when someone was like, um, "What? That's awful. That's not L. Ron Hubbard." Like, not per LRH. Not per LRH is like, ooh, it's always in my mind. Va. Sin of verbal tech, is it a fear that people on lower levels may know what information they're not entitled to from upper levels? Or maybe they just don't want you to get it wrong. I'm curious why. Well, it doesn't have to do with verbal tech can be on any level. It doesn't have to be between the upper level and the lower level. It can be between a lower level and another lower level, and they don't even need to be talking about the upper levels. They can be talking about the lower levels. That's verbal tech. They're not even allowed to interpret anything. So sin of verbal tech, is it a fear that people on lower levels may know what information they're not entitled to from upper levels? People on lower levels may know what information. I don't know what you mean. Or maybe they just don't want you to get it wrong. Maybe they don't want you to get it wrong. Oh, what's the reason why for saying no verbal tech in Scientology? I get what you're saying. Let me think. Because L. Ron Hubbard's source. That's why. That goes back to this thing about source, LRH. LRH is source. You can't change Scientology and call that Scientology. It's not. It's something else. It's squirrels. Anything that is by L. Ron Hubbard is Scientology. if you are to explain your own interpretation of Scientology, that is not Scientology. That is your interpretation of Scientology. That is not source. That is not LRH. That is not per LRH. It's not source. So when someone's like, take out disconnection, I'm like, what? You can't take out disconnection. That's source. Like LRH said to do this thing. Like when you see a real suppressive person and they're lurking on you and trying to destroy your mind, that's what L. Ron Hubbard thinks suppressive persons are. Then you can disconnect from them and then get a bunch of auditing at your own expense. And that will magically heal the suppressive person from far away. Plus, if you audit yourself, all of these ghosts out of your body, ghosts, you're handling all these, you're auditing yourself on the upper levels of Scientology, and you're handling all of these ghosts, then the theta and theta ratio in the world is being handled. And so these suppressive persons, they will magically get better because of the theta in the universe that's going to heal them. That was the explanation that I was given and understood. Source. That's source. Source, you can't change source. I get that people in Scientology and the Sea Org view other people and other Scientologists view other people who get bad results with Scientology. Those people are just people that did it wrong. They didn't actually do real Scientology because real Scientology frees you. So if someone in this in Scientology is like misinterpreting something and then does something wrong with Scientology, for example, if someone goes and hires a private investigator to stalk a Church of Scientology naysayer, that Sea Org member that went and hired that person may have misinterpreted what L. Ron Hubbard meant in, some materials about handling suppressive persons. And the Scientologist will go, oh, that guy just had it wrong. It was just a Sea Org member that did it wrong. That's all. It's a Sea Org member. Like everyone, this is a Scientologist talking. Everyone, the Sea Org members, they just like, they are not perfect. Not like L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard is perfect. And so source, L. Ron Hubbard, there's nothing he could say that's wrong. There's just absolutely, it's all perfect. And when you get these other people misapplying it, that's when you get into trouble. And that's where you get trouble spots in Scientology and attacks, legal attacks, is when you have this misapplied Scientology information in that area. So the Sea Org, Scientologists view it as, oh, Scientologists just messed it up. They never go, well, Scientology maybe isn't right in this respect. So if it is not right in one single respect, I feel like that could create a domino effect with other things, because everything is really kind of dependent on each other in the theosophy of Scientology. So I think there's just absolutely no way you can take out the subject of disconnection. It is not per LRH. Thanks for the question or the comment. Why not the verbal tech? Because you're not fucking source. That's why. You're not God, are you? Boom. That's why you're not L. Ron Hubbard. That's why you can't get verbal tech. Hey. All right. So I'm going back to not per LRH, not per LRH. If I like my heels together, not per LRH, not per LRH. Will I think of anything else? All right. Well, I'm going to be winding down here. if anyone wants to say anything else, if anyone else is watching. I, oh, here we go. Crystal clarity. Scientology totally suppresses you, but it's pretending that you are the suppressive person. Right. And what's weird is that Scientology is not even suppressing you by their definition of suppressing, because they're just impressing you by their definition of suppressing. I would say, yeah, like I would use a different word. Scientology totally suppresses you, but it's pretending that you are a suppressive person. I would use definitely a different word there on the suppresses. Totally brainwashes you, invalidates. I can't think of any other Scientology words. Because it's not, yeah, because you can't do anything to Scientology. Yeah, a suppressive person is someone that stops Scientology. Stops Scientology or Scientologists or anyone that Scientology is helping. So, or any connections for people with Scientology, that is suppressive person. If you're stopping that, you know, so Scientology is not really suppressing you from doing Scientology. It's trying to brainwash you to do more Scientology. But then with Sea Org members, it's like they're how I don't even understand how it works, because they're not even being audited enough to be brainwashing them, or like getting them on course enough for them to get the brainwashing. Like, is it more have to do with the briefings that we would get about things, like the constant things that they're telling us? It must be more about that than the training and the processing for a SEER member, because the training and processing for SEER members is minimal. Very few staff members could get through the basic books and lectures. Very few, small percentage. Probably some still haven't since the inception of it, which is over 15 years ago, 18 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever it was that the basics books and lectures came out. Probably some staff members have still not gotten through it and have not been able to go up the bridge because they're not through their basic books and lectures, brainwashed. So they must be being brainwashed some other way. I think it's through the confessionals mostly. Confessionals and lower conditions, and just focusing their mind on Scientology production quotas and the purpose. They really push purpose. They call it pushing purpose in the C organization, but all they're doing is reminding you of what L. Ron Hubbard wants for Sea Org, the Sea Org, and that is to the vague ideas of it, to clear the planet of all criminality and stuff. And so they're always at every briefing, which is every Monday, they're always talking about this purpose, the why the Sea Org is there, and then they're giving examples of how the Sea Org is helping the world. But this is happening every single base briefing that I remember. I used to love that though. So, I mean, I love that part. And I was brainwashing myself with the courses and the auditing. But I used to love hearing about how we were helping so many people in the world when really we were not. We're not. Sucks. Wasted all that time there. I wish I was not in there. I would rather be out here in the WOG world, oblivious of everything, than be in that C organization and Scientology, thinking that I'm gonna become a super being that can remember all my past lives and never die, because I'll remember this life, and when I go to my next life, I'll still remember everything from this life, and I'll be able to pick up where I left off, and just be in the Sea Org forever doing Scientology. I mean, really, 1 billion years is not that much when you think about what Scientology, you're doing Scientology for eternity. That's what L. Ron Hubbard is saying to a Scientologist, and not a Sea Org member, a Scientologist. This is for eternity. This is for eternity. Over and over, he's saying that word eternity and other words like it. And that's what you're kind of like, you're like into. I'm into. I'm like, I want to do this for eternity. I mean, once you believe in Scientology, you think, oh, yeah, I'm doing this for eternity. Of course. How could I think any other way? It makes so much sense. Once you get there, I mean, you're pretty much fucked until you do something bad, so bad that they want to kick your ass out of the Sea organization. You know, and bad to them, not actually bad to someone. And then, so they did that to me. I got declared suppressive person. And for a while, for a few years after I left in 2013, I got, um, I really wanted to go back. I really thought I was a suppressive person. And in their eyes, that's someone who is just the worst, evil, always trying to harm and injure other people, stuff like that. So I was a suppressive person. I believe that. And finally, I got out of this self brainwashing shit, and I'm starting to leave Scientology. I don't believe in it. I've never used it since I left Scientology. I've rarely used the words, and now I'm just trying to talk about it more. Hopefully, I can get a little bit better about this and better at this, and get my lighting better. Thanks for watching, y'all. Thank you for all your comments.